It is the fall of 2003 in New York when we meet our leading lady, Katherine Chandler. Katherine goes to law school and is a part-time bartender. One night after closing the bar, she gets in her car to go home. Unfortunately, her car breaks down. She calls her mother to help. Soon, her mother arrives and starts fixing her car. While fixing the car, two gunmen come out of nowhere and start shooting at them. They shoot Katherine's mother and kill her. Katherine runs away to save herself. She manages to run into a forest, but the gunmen are right after her. She falls and is convinced that she is about to die. A gunman points his gun at her. Right when he is about to shoot her, some kind of beast comes out of the woods. The beast rips the gunman apart in a matter of seconds. After that, the beast turns to Katherine, who is lying on the ground. Katherine is scared for her life. The beast and Katherine look into each other's eyes. Katherine realizes that the beast might be a man. The beast grunts and leaves. Now 9 years have passed since the murder of Katherine's mother. We learn that no one believed Katherine when she told others that a man saved her life. According to them, some kind of animal attack had saved her. Instead of becoming a lawyer, Katherine is now an NYPD detective. One night, Katherine gets called to a crime scene. At the crime scene, her partner Tess advises her to date nicer guys. We also meet with her boss, Joe. The police have found a dead woman in a hotel bathroom. The following morning, Katherine and her associates discuss the possible cause of death. It turns out that they found some prints of the dead woman belonging to a doctor named Vincent Keller. When they check the records, they see that Vincent Keller was killed in action in Afghanistan 10 years ago. Katherine and Tess decide to investigate him further. They go to the hospital where Vincent used to work. At the hospital, Vincent's former co-worker informs Katherine that Vincent was very caring, but antisocial. We also learn he lost his brothers in the towers on September 11th and subsequently enlisted in the army. Vincent did not have many friends, but he had a roommate named JT. After that, Katherine and Tess track down JT to an abandoned warehouse where he lives. They enter the warehouse and knock at the door. JT opens the door and is a friendly-looking nerd. He is a professor of biochemistry at a university. They interrogate JT about Vincent and ask him if he has heard from Vincent recently. JT jokingly says that he has not heard from Vincent because he cannot hear dead people. While they are talking, someone is secretly looking at them. Frustrated, Katherine and Tess leave because they cannot search the warehouse without a warrant. After Tess and Katherine leave, JT runs upstairs. He goes to Vincent, who looks like a normal man with a scar on his face. JT is having a nervous breakdown and asks Vincent why his prints were on a dead woman. Vincent explains that he was trying to save the woman by giving her CPR. Vincent shows JT a newspaper clipping with the headline of the murder of Katherine's mother. He has been keeping this clipping around for all these years. JT is terrified that they are going to get caught and killed. Vincent says that he is getting tired of living like a prisoner. After that, Katherine goes down to the morgue. She meets her colleague, Evan, who is a medical examiner. Evan informs Katherine that CPR was done on the dead woman to revive her. Evan also informs her that he found cross-species DNA at the crime scene. Katherine is intrigued when Evan tells her that this DNA matches the one found at the crime scene of her mother's murder. Later that day, Katherine goes back to the warehouse alone. She goes to the second floor of the warehouse and finds Vincent hiding there. She pulls out her gun and asks Vincent to show himself. Vincent comes out and tells her that he did not kill the woman. He says that the woman was killed by poison and that he tried to save her by giving her CPR. Suddenly, she gets a phone call from Evan, who informs her that the cause of death was poison. Katherine cuts the call and asks Vincent how he knew about the poison. Vincent tells her that he could smell it on the woman. Katherine spots the newspaper clipping with her picture on it. She is about to freak out when Tess walks into the warehouse. Vincent asks Katherine to keep his secret of being alive. Katherine agrees to keep it a secret for now. She takes Tess and exits the warehouse. After that, she goes back to her office to solve the murder case. She finds out that an assistant had poisoned the deceased because the assistant was having an affair with the husband of the victim. Katherine arrests this assistant. Then she receives a call from the FBI telling her to meet. Apparently, she has asked them to verify the cross-species DNA sample linked to the one found in her mother's case. Later, she meets the officer on a subway platform. Suddenly, the officer, with the help of another guy, tries to attack and kill her. Katherine manages to take out all the attackers except for a woman who throws her into the tracks. However, the beast arrives just in time and kills all the agents. It looks at Katherine for a moment and runs away towards the subway tracks. She follows the beast onto the tracks, but suddenly, the train arrives. When she is about to get hit by a train, the beast re-arrives and pushes her to safety. When Katherine turns around, the beast has completely transformed into Vincent. Katherine realizes that Vincent is the beast. He is also the one who saved her 9 years ago. Later at night, they make their way into the warehouse. Vincent tends to Katherine's wounds. He narrates his story of how he became a monster. He tells her that after the 9/11 attack, he was devastated and furious about his brother's death. He left the hospital and enlisted himself in the army. There, he became part of an experimental program called Muirfield. Muirfield injected them to turn them into super soldiers. But the experiment went wrong, and Muirfield realized that these super soldiers were unable to control themselves. Muirfield killed all the super soldiers, but somehow Vincent managed to escape and has been hiding since. He tells Catherine that he sometimes goes out at night and tries to help the people in need. It reminds him of the time when he used to be a normal human. He warns Catherine that she has now got the attention of Muirfield. He asks Catherine to leave and never come back for her own good. The next day, Catherine goes to her office. There, a man pays Joe a visit and takes away the bodies of Muirfield agents that Vincent killed on the subway platform. Later that night, Vincent and JT are playing chess when Catherine walks into the warehouse. JT is confused as he obviously didn't know that Vincent and Catherine had been interacting. She asks Vincent to listen to her before kicking her out. She tells him that he is a hero for saving all those people, and that he is far from being a monster. Vincent informs her that Muirfield agents were after her mom, and she shouldn't feel responsible for her death. Catherine is shocked to hear this. Catherine is driving to her office when a cyclist crashes into her car. She gets out of her car to help this man. As he goes near this man, he pulls out a gun and shoots her. She manages to avoid the bullet and escape narrowly. She kicks the gun out of the man's hand. He gets up and they start fighting in the alley. Eventually, the man overcomes Catherine and, with the stripe of his bag, tries to strangle her. She is fighting for her life when suddenly Vincent arrives and throws the man in a car. As Vincent is about to rip the man apart, Catherine gets up and tells Vincent that she is okay. Hearing this, Vincent leaves. She goes to check on the man when another person from upstairs asks her if he should call the cops. She tells this person that she is the cop. The next morning, Catherine meets Evan in the morgue where her attacker from last night is lying dead. Evan tells her that the cause of death was blunt force trauma on his head. Catherine says that she pushed him away and he hit his head on a car. Evan is doubtful that Catherine killed this man because she is not that strong. She convinces Evan that she is the one who killed him. While they are talking, Joe enters the room. He asks Evan about the dead man. Evans tells Joe that it is a case of just self-defense. Catherine is relieved to hear Evan say this. The Muirfield agents meet in a dark alley at night. We see a man saying to another agent that he went to the morgue, and the samples were there as expected. He says that it is now confirmed that Vincent Keller is alive. The other agent says that Catherine is going to bring Vincent to them, and it is time to act. The Muirfield agents try to kidnap Catherine from the middle of the street. She tries her best to fight them. Eventually, the agents manage to get a hold of her and get her in their car. In the next scene, we see her tied up to a chair in an abandoned building. An agent from Muirfield comes up to her and asks for Vincent's location. Catherine denies having knowledge of any Vincent. The agent tells her that she is trying to protect a monster. Catherine says to him that their people sent Vincent off to war to be a killing machine. But 10 years have passed, and Vincent is not the same man anymore. She tells him that Muirfield agents killed her mother. The agent sits down and shows her a picture of an Afghan village. He tells her that Vincent has massacred the entire village. He informs her that Vincent is not some kind of protective beast, but something very lethal. He wants to take Vincent away to a place where he won't be a danger to anybody. He says that they will try to find a cure for Vincent. He shows Catherine a picture of her mother with the Muirfield scientists. He offers to give the truth behind her mother's death in return for Vincent. He gives Catherine his card and 3 days' time to contact him before they use other tactics to bring Vincent out. In the next scene, Catherine goes to her home, where Vincent is already waiting for her in the window. She tells Vincent that Muirfield kidnapped her and that they know that he is alive. They wanted his location, but she did not tell them. She says that it is her fault that she did not stay away from him. She tells Vincent that the best way to protect her is for him to stay away. Later in the warehouse, Vincent takes out his blood samples in various tubes and puts them in an ice bucket. He departs by leaving behind a note that says, "Proof I existed, take back your lives. Goodbye." Later, when JT arrives at the warehouse, he finds that Vincent, along with all his belongings, is gone. He figures that Muirfield got to him and took him away. Seeing this, JT calls Catherine to blame her but suddenly spots Vincent's note. He tells Catherine that Vincent is going to turn himself to Muirfield. In the next scene, we see Vincent calling the Muirfield agent using the card they gave to Catherine earlier. He tells the person on the phone that he knows they are looking for him, and he is ready to come back. Meanwhile, Catherine arrives at the warehouse to meet JT. She sees Vincent's blood samples. JT tells her that it's their insurance plan. In case something happens to them, he is supposed to send this out so that the whole world can know about Muirfield. Catherine plans to track a Muirfield agent using his prints in her car. The agent drove Catherine's car when she was kidnapped. Through prints, they can track his phone and find Vincent. Due to a lack of better options, JT agrees with her. Soon, the Muirfield agents arrive at the location that Vincent gave them. Then, they call Vincent. Vincent agrees to turn himself to them on the condition that Catherine will not be touched again. He also tells them about his insurance plan. The Muirfield agent says that his superiors don't know anything about Catherine, so they will not harm her. Hearing this, Vincent comes out to them. At the warehouse, Catherine and JT are trying to track the location of the Muirfield agent's phone. They finally find out his location and storm out. Soon, they arrive at the location where they see Vincent and the agents. Vincent has been handcuffed in chains and tells her to go away. Catherine refuses and starts shooting at the agents. The shootout kills all the Muirfield agents. Vincent advises Catherine to go away and that he will dispose of the bodies. JT frees Vincent's hands from the chain and Catherine leaves. Catherine and Vincent decide to have an intimate dinner at her apartment. He is walking to buy flowers for her when suddenly his head starts hurting, and he stops. In the next scene, we see him waking up on the top of a bridge. He does not seem to know how and why he got up there. After a few days, we see Vincent waking up at night in an alley. His hands and shirt are covered in blood. He looks scared, as if he has done something terrible. The next morning, JT is monitoring Vincent's frontal cortex's activity on a computer. Vincent tells him that he blacks out and does not remember anything he does. Vincent advises JT that he should probably stay away from him. JT shows Vincent his backup plan, a tranquilizer gun that will knock Vincent out for a while. Vincent is also worried about Catherine's safety and figures that he should warn her. JT says that Catherine will turn Vincent to the police after learning that he is a danger to everyone. While they are talking, Vincent starts to black out again. As he blacks out, the beast comes out. The beast tosses JT across the room to the wall. The beast comes towards JT, but JT pulls out the tranquilizer and shoots at the beast's leg. The beast was knocked out on the floor. Suddenly, Catherine knocks at the door. JT opens the door and nervously tells her that Vincent is not here. She asks JT to tell Vincent that she is going to Northam for a day with her partner. JT asks her why she is going to Northam. Catherine tells him about the gruesome murder of a fraternity boy that happened at university last night. JT realizes that Vincent is probably the cause of this murder. After that, Catherine leaves his door. After a while, Vincent wakes up. JT is standing beside him with his tranquilizer gun pointed towards Vincent. Vincent does not seem to remember a thing he did. JT informs Vincent that his frontal lobe was repressed when he was in a trance, due to which he was unable to control his feelings. JT also informs him that Catherine is investigating the murder of a frat boy that happened last night. The frat boy died due to multiple claws-like wounds and possibly at the same time when Vincent was blacked out. At the office, Catherine and Tess interrogate a former member of the frat group. He tells them that Derek, the guy who died, was a sadist and liked to bully other members of the group. He tells them about Welton Bell Tower, where they had fun all the time. Tess says that on the night of the murder, Derek got a call from someone asking him to meet him at the tower. They decide to go there and investigate. In the next scene, Tess and Catherine are in the tower. There, they find shoes and a balloon. They also see blood on the ground. Tess goes out to inform the station about this. Suddenly, Vincent comes out and tells Catherine that the killer she is after might be him. Catherine is shocked to hear this. Later in the warehouse, we see JT analyzing the blood sample found from the tower. He is checking if it matches the blood that Vincent had on him last night. Catherine and Vincent are also there. Vincent says sorry to Catherine for his troubles. Catherine tells him that he did not kill Derek because even when he is not himself, he always does the right thing. She tells him that she accepts him for who he is. Suddenly, JT turns around to tell them that Vincent is not the killer because the blood samples don't match. Vincent says that now they must figure out whose blood he had on his hands. Down at the morgue, Evan is figuring out all sorts of stuff about the case. On Derek's body, he sees a wound that looks like a check mark. He had seen this check mark before on a cadaver that was found in the middle of the university. He figures the cadaver was a test run for the actual murder. He also concludes that the killer had to be a student and decides to check the crime scene. He tells all of this to his fresh intern, Peter Hollingsworth. When Evan is at the crime scene, he video calls Catherine. When they are right in the middle of the conversation, Evan gets hit on the head and is kidnapped. Later, at the station, Catherine and her associates figure out that the intern, Peter, might be the killer. They figured that Peter practiced on the cadaver and got an internship in their office so he could follow through. He abducted Evan because he was getting too close. Catherine and Tess go to Peter's dorm and find a series of newspaper clippings of various murders under his mattress. They realize that Peter has been recreating famous murder scenes. Now, they try to figure out which crime scene Peter will try to recreate to murder Evan. Catherine spots a clipping of the Muirfield agents killed at the subway tracks. She decides that's the one that Peter will try to recreate. At the warehouse, Vincent and JT are trying to discover whose blood was on Vincent. Suddenly, Catherine arrives and asks for Vincent's help to track Evan in the underground tunnels. She says that the killer is recreating murders, and he will next be recreating the murder on the subway platform. JT is against the idea of the two of them going alone. They still decide to go, and JT gives Catherine the tranquilizer gun as a precaution. Vincent and Catherine are walking down in the tunnels. They start remembering the last time they were there. Catherine states that he saved her life. He says that he would do it all over again, but also mentions that taking a life is never easy for him. Suddenly, Vincent feels the blackout coming and he asks Catherine to tranquilize him, but she refuses to shoot him. Then, the beast comes out and tracks Evan, who has been tied to a pole on the other side of the tunnel. Peter is also standing near Evan. The beast tears apart Peter. Evan hears the whole attack and is scared for his life. After killing Peter, the beast slowly approaches Evan. Catherine arrives just in time and shoots her gun in the air, making the beast run away. After the beast disappears into the tunnels, she unties Evan. The next day, Catherine goes back to work and pays Evan a visit. Evan is having a hard time after being face-to-face with a serial killer. Evan is now convinced that he was saved by someone who was not entirely human. Later that day, Catherine goes to the warehouse. JT answers the door and asks her why she did not use the tranquilizer gun. She explains it was her only way to track and save Evan. JT walks to a metal door and opens it to reveal a cage with Vincent inside. Catherine sees him and is devastated. JT tells her that Vincent himself put him there. He also informs her that they have figured out what was triggering the blackouts, and Vincent tells Catherine that it's you. Vincent and JT have figured out a way to induce his blackouts using synthesized endorphins. During one of his blackouts, Vincent starts having a flashback about his past. In the flashback, we see Catherine's mother, Vanessa Chandler, in Afghanistan administering the injections. Later that present day, Catherine arrives at the warehouse. Vincent informs her that her mother was in Afghanistan and was probably part of Muirfield. After seeing the look on her face, JT asks if she already knew about this. Catherine tells them about the time Muirfield agent kidnapped her and showed her mother's photo with other Muirfield scientists. They are not happy to learn that she has kept this a secret from them. However, Catherine says that she did not inform them because she did not believe it to be true. After that, Vincent locks himself in the cage and JT starts to inject him to induce another blackout. It's because they want to learn more about his past and Catherine's mother. JT injects Vincent, causing him to black out. In a flashback, Vincent is hanging out with his platoon member, Lafferty. They talk about how the injected soldiers of their unit are starting to show increased strength. After Lafferty tells him that he wasn't too bad himself, she blacks out. In another flashback, he is working out when Vanessa approaches him. He tells her that he is ready for duty. Vanessa explains the reasons why she got into the project. She says she wanted to make the world a better place, protect her daughters, and save lives. Then Vanessa explains that blackouts are basically a side effect and that everyone's DNA responds differently to these injections. After Vincent's blackout, he wakes up and tells Catherine that she is not the cause of the blackouts. Catherine is processing that her mother wasn't just a regular doctor. He tells her that her mother was trying to find a cure for the side effects of super soldier serum. He says that her mother had a notebook that she always kept with her. In the next scene, Catherine goes to her father's house to look for her mother's old notes. She goes through her mom's boxes and JT is joining her by video call. They find the notebook that Vincent remembered from the flashback. She shows JT the notebook through her cell phone camera. JT manages to find some formulas there to cure the side effects, but he says that he needs equipment to replicate these formulas. He tells Catherine that they can get this equipment from a police forensics lab. Catherine plans to use Evan's lab equipment. Later, JT is terrified of infiltrating Evan's lab. Catherine tells him to enter through the back door of the morgue and prepare the serum within a couple of hours. After that, Catherine enters her office. Tess is annoyed at her for leaving her alone. Catherine goes to Evan's office and asks him to join her in a raid at a manager's apartment. He agrees and leaves with her. Soon after, JT enters Evan's office. He starts using the equipment to make the antidote serum. JT is wrapping up his antidote vials when Tess enters the morgue. Luckily, JT managed to hide his stuff and put on a lab coat. Tess notices him, but JT gets out successfully. JT goes back to the warehouse to test the serum on a mouse and then on Vincent. Unfortunately, Vincent is in his beast mode and is having flashbacks of memory. Vincent remembers the day when super soldiers went out of control and Muirfield decided to kill them. He finds Catherine's mom, who is arguing with a general. The general tells her that the monsters she created are out of control and will have to be killed. But she is against the massacre of these soldiers and wants more time to figure out the cure. The general decides to kill her too. At that moment, Vincent turned into the beast for the first time and attacked the general. The general cut Vincent's face with a knife, creating the scar we know today. Back in the present, Catherine arrives and tries to calm the beast down. She manages to bring Vincent out. Catherine is relieved that Vincent and JT are fine. Suddenly, Vincent injects the untested serum into his arm, hoping that it will either cure him or kill him. She runs to stop Vincent from injecting himself. However, she is unable to stop Vincent, and the only thing left to do now is wait for the serum to react. At night, when Evan is leaving his office, Tess meets with him. She asks him about the new intern she saw today when Evan was out with Catherine. Evan looks confused. She asks him if everything is all right. Evan answers yes and leaves. Later that night, Catherine goes to her mother's grave. Catherine forgives her mother for what she did and chooses to believe that she had good intentions. However, she still feels responsible and wants to fix the mess she left behind and make it right. Vincent is also there listening to all this behind a tree. Catherine goes to him. Vincent assures them that they will make it right. He informs her that the serum worked because he is no longer having any blackouts issue, but there is still a beast inside him. Tess is working at her desk when Evan comes up to her. He asks Tess to identify the person posing as his intern by looking at the footage of that whole day. Evans tells her that this posing intern was using his DNA analyzer. Evan says that he is working on a secret project about genetic mutations, and that person was probably here to steal this project from him. After that, Tess agrees to look at the footage. Later, Tess identifies the person and gives his image to Evan. The next day, Evan goes to meet JT in his office on campus. Evan asks him about a paper that JT published on cross-species DNA 8 years ago. He tells JT that he has evidence that a cross-species creature exists. He is onto something groundbreaking and needs an expert in biochemistry. Evan asks JT to join him in his research, investigation, and the fame they will get after publishing their paper. JT agrees. Evan and JT try to match the DNA found on a newly murdered biker to the cross-species DNA. In the lab, they analyze it, and it matches the cross-species DNA. Evan is happy that now he can report it to his boss, Joe, and hunt this creature. JT is worried because he thought they would try and find a cure for this creature. Evans tells him that they will find a cure, but only after they have captured it. Suddenly, his blood samples get corrupted, making Evan unable to track the creature. JT is relieved to see this. Later that day, a lady meets a man in a restaurant. She tells this man that Evan was on to Vincent, but she corrupted his samples just in time. The lady assures the man that they will get to Vincent before the police and continue their Muirfield project. Meanwhile, JT realizes that someone from Muirfield has bugged Evan's lab and has been sabotaging his research. He brings Evan out of his lab, offering to buy him a soda. Evan asks JT what's the matter, seeing that JT looks worried. JT tells him that there is a secret organization that has spent billions on creating genetic weapons. Maybe they are the ones who are sabotaging Evan's work to cover their tracks. JT informs him that there is more at stake than a small grant that Evan is hoping to get from his work. Evan asks JT how he knows all this. JT says that he just knows and tells Evan to stop searching for his creature. Evan accuses JT that he might be the one sabotaging his work and then leaves to continue his research. Later, we see the Muirfield lady secretly taking photographs of Evan's work in his lab, but she gets caught by Evan, who grabs her from behind. Evan asks her who sent her and why she is here. The lady answers that she was sent by the organization that created the cross-species creature that he is after. She tells him that it was a mistake, and the creature is vicious. They are trying to hunt it before it kills any more innocent people. She asks Evan to join them in their hunt for this creature. Evan agrees to join them. Catherine goes to her apartment and sees Vincent already waiting there for her. She tells Vincent that they should take things slowly and naturally. Vincent asks her what she really wants. Vincent slowly moves towards her. He leans in to kiss her, but they are interrupted by Catherine's sister, Heather, who has seen everything. Catherine and Vincent walk out on the rooftop. She tells Vincent that she does not want to put her sister in any kind of trouble by telling her about him. Vincent calms her down. He advises Catherine to tell her sister that he is nothing more than just a random guy from a bar. Vincent says that Heather has no idea who he is, and that she does not know anything about his past life. Vincent jumps off the roof and leaves. After that, Catherine goes inside the apartment where Heather is eagerly waiting for her. Catherine tells her that it was just a random guy she met in a bar. Heather is not convinced and asks to meet him. Heather convinces Catherine to invite Vincent over for dinner. Later, they have dinner, and Heather also has invited her boyfriend, Darius. Darius is the brother of Catherine's boss, Joe. The dinner goes well. The following night, Catherine and Heather are in a club with their boyfriends. Soon, Catherine leaves the club. Later, some thugs pull Darius away from the crowd and take him outside of the club. Apparently, Darius owes money to these thugs. They point a gun at him and demand their money. Heather also comes out looking for Darius. She sees the gun and threatens thugs that she will tell this to her cop sister. The thugs knock her out and plan to kill her by asking Darius to pull the trigger. Darius takes the gun and is about to pull the trigger when the Beast arrives and saves Heather. The Beast sends Darius flying against the dumpster. Then, the Beast kills a couple of the thugs but fails to kill the third. After killing them, Vincent checks on Heather. After verifying verifying that Heather is breathing, Vincent moves on to Darius, who has died. Later that night, Catherine goes to her apartment and finds Vincent there looking miserable. He tells Catherine that he has killed Darius. He says that Darius was going to shoot Heather. He threw him away and accidentally killed him. She asks if Heather is all right. Vincent assures her that Heather is fine. Suddenly, she gets a call from Heather and leaves to see her. Catherine goes to Heather and comforts her. Evan and Tess also arrive at the scene and discover the claw marks on Darius's body. Joe breaks down by looking at his brother Darius. Catherine also cries not just for Heather, but for herself and Vincent. The next day at the office, Evan calls Catherine and tells her that it was the work of the cross-species creature. Evan is convinced that the creature is somehow connected to Catherine and that it is circling her like a predator to its prey. He tells Catherine that he is scared for her. Catherine tells him not to worry about her and leaves. We see Evan handing over his research to the Muirfield agents in a closed room. The agent looks at Evan's reports. The agent asks Evan to report to them if he finds anything new and tells him to leave. Evan is upset because he wants to join and have a position in Muirfield. The agent tells Evan that he is not Muirfield material. Evan gets angry and shoves the agent against a wall. Another agent standing in the room points a gun at Evan's head and asks him to leave. Meanwhile, Tess and Catherine are at work. They are talking about their love lives when Joe arrives and introduces his new assistant district attorney named Gabe Lowen. Joe tells them that Gabe will be here in the office to ensure the capture of the vigilante. We also learn that Gabe has brought a couple of cops named Garnett and Newell to help him. Later, Catherine arrives at the warehouse. She starts by telling Vincent that she is afraid for his safety. She talks about the manhunt that Joe is planning by bringing in extra cops only to capture Vincent. Vincent mentions that he always knew he would end up dead, but thought it would be in the hands of Muirfield. He is also upset about the newspapers painting him as a cold-blooded killer. Catherine thinks if they find the thugs who were pressuring Darius, then they can prove that Vincent was only trying to protect Heather. On the other hand, Vincent seems to only be worried about Catherine's safety. He describes how 2 years ago, when his adrenaline kicked in with a woman, he couldn't stop from changing. Catherine asks if he killed that woman. Vincent assures her that the woman has managed to escape. Catherine tells him that when she is with him, he controls himself better. Vincent replies that he does not feel more out of control than when he is with her. In the warehouse, they discuss that Darius had borrowed a large sum of money from a loan shark from the East River crime syndicate. Darius took the loan to start a VIP lounge that didn't make any money. That is why the thugs were after Darius. Catherine has information on a man called Ross, who may know people in the syndicate. Ross might be able to help them to find the man who got away the night Darius died. But Catherine can't go, because if Joe finds out she's trying to prove the vigilante innocent, she will be in trouble. Vincent decides to go alone and interrogate Ross. In the next scene, Vincent goes to talk to Ross in a bar where he works. Vincent poses as a veteran who needs some quick money to pay off some foreign loan sharks, and that they will kill Vincent if he does not pay in time. Vincent offers weapons to Ross as collateral. He asks Ross for money. Ross quickly calls his boss at a distance. Vincent hears that the boss's name is Ray, and then leaves immediately. Soon after, Catherine tracks down the details of this Ray and takes it to Evan. He tells Catherine that they need some bigger evidence against Ray for a warrant against him. She also learns that Joe's cops are also following the same leads, and they may fabricate evidence to get the warrants they need. Evan asks her how she found out about Ray. She replies that it was just a hunch. When she leaves, Evan passes on the information that he may have a witness who saw their creature up close to Muirfield agent. Muirfield still refuses to give him a bigger role in the investigation, so Evan doesn't pass on the name. He tells the agent that he will handle it himself. Later that night, Catherine calls Vincent to her apartment. She tells Vincent that Joe's cops are onto Ray, and they may get to Ray before Vincent. If the cops get to Ray, he will easily lie to them and say that he was an innocent bystander and saw Vincent kill Darius in cold blood. Ray is a member of the board of a museum that is having an open gala tonight. Catherine and Vincent plan to go to this mask gala, hoping to capture Ray. At the gala, Catherine flirts with Ray and arranges for him to meet her alone in an exhibit to give her a tour. We also see that Gabe and Evan have also turned up for this event. In the closed exhibit, Catherine holds Ray at gunpoint. Ray calls her a bitch and points a gun at her. Suddenly, Vincent jumps on Ray in beast mode. She threatens Ray that if he wants to live, he will go to the police and admit that he is the one who ordered Darius to kill the woman, and the vigilante was just a normal guy who saved the woman. Ray agrees to do everything that she asks. After that, Ray leaves and runs into Evan. Evan notices that he is shaken and wants to ask about the monster, but then Gabe arrives. Ray tells Gabe that he has something important to say and takes him to a room and closes the door. Ray wants full immunity to be a witness, saying that the vigilante only acted to save Heather's life. But Gabe is more interested in what the vigilante looked like. The next day, Evan gets a call from Muirfield congratulating him on doing the right thing. Muirfield thinks that Evan found the witness before he could speak to the police and killed him. Evan is confused. He He checks the newspaper to see that Ray's body was found in the basement of the museum, and Muirfield thinks that he did it, and, on the strength of that, Evan is now in. Catherine, Evan, and Tess are dragged into a conference where Joe dissolves all their partnerships. Joe puts them on a new task force, entirely focused on catching the vigilante, and Gabe says he wants cops who focus on justice above all else. Later at night, Catherine goes to the warehouse to warn Vincent about the new task force. Vincent already is aware of the task force through a press conference. Catherine says that she is part of this force and will keep an eye from the inside. She tells Vincent that he should not be afraid of anyone. She assures Vincent that he can never hurt her, and then they make love. The following morning, Joe and his cops find a man murdered in the back of a horse-drawn carriage in a park. Joe is convinced that it's the work of the same vigilante. Soon, Catherine arrives there. Joe is angry at her for being late. Catherine instantly expresses doubt about the case being connected to the vigilante. She claims that no innocent victim was being protected in this murder, like in the previous cases involving the vigilante. Joe's judgment is clouded because the vigilante killed his brother, and now Joe wants to blame the vigilante for this murder too. Gabe also shows up and announces they've had a massive increase in funding to capture the vigilante. Gabe also objects when Joe talks about killing the vigilante rather than prosecuting him. Gabe talks to Catherine alone. He is not convinced when Catherine tells him that their vigilante might not be involved in this murder. At the station, Evan examines the body and does not find any cross-species DNA. Catherine asks Evan to tell this to Joe and express his doubts about the vigilante's connection to this crime. Evan points out that the absence of evidence means nothing, and the victim does have claw marks. After that, Catherine leaves, forgetting her scarf behind. Evan picks up her scarf. Later that day, Catherine and Vincent look at the carriage. They think that someone is trying to frame Vincent. They decide that it can't be Muirfield, because Muirfield would never want this kind of attention. With Vincent's super senses, they find something sharp caught in the horse's shoe. In the next scene, Evan gets in a taxi and finds that there's already an occupant. The agent from Muirfield is inside who has an assignment for Evan. He asks Evan to stop the task force from catching Vigilante. Muirfield wants Vigilante caught but not by the police. With JT, Catherine and Vincent study the sharp thing they found. They discover that it's a spike from a weapon named the Morning Star. Catherine declares that based on the crime scene she saw, it's part of the murder weapon. Catherine returns to Evan with her proof. Meanwhile, Evan tested Catherine's scarf and found the cross-species DNA. Evan thinks she's protecting the vigilante. She protests that she's been to plenty of crime scenes causing her to be contaminated. Evan says that he just wants the truth and to protect her. She reminds Evan that the vigilante saved his life. Evan replies that he will do whatever he can to get the vigilante. At the warehouse, Vincent, JT, and Catherine sum up that Evan's against them and know that Catherine's connected. Joe is out for blood, and so is Gabe. There are two loose cops on the force who don't care about laws. They launch a desperate plan to fake Vincent's death. JT gets a body from his campus research lab with a plan for it to burn in a fire in the warehouse. Catherine decides that she will mess with Evan's samples in the lab, so that Evan would not be able to figure out that the body was already dead before burning in the fire. Catherine begins their plan by sending Gabe the address of the vigilante. He passes it on to the station. Everyone is excited to catch the vigilante. The police load up and head out. Meanwhile, Tess hears of a lady who was saved by the vigilante. Tess meets with this lady to ask some questions. When asked by Tess, the lady describes that the vigilante was moving like a big cat. He was growling and had glowing, yellow, cat-like eyes. Tess notices that it happened near an underground access. She decides to go inside to have a look. JT goes to meet Evan to offer him his research and to see if he shared it with anyone. Evan tells him that he has given up his research to Muirfield. JT also finds out that Evan has passed on the address of the vigilante to Muirfield so they can get there before the police move in. Suddenly, Muirfield attacks the warehouse with Vincent and Catherine still inside. They escape through the emergency exit. Soon, the police arrive, and one of the troops shoots the barrels that Vincent had set up. The barrels explode and create a huge fire. The emergency services gather as Catherine and Vincent run through the tunnels under the warehouse. They are in the clear and decide to be careful in the future. Catherine goes to see Joe. Joe stays outside the burned warehouse to make sure that the evidence is collected properly. She says that they got him, and Joe agrees. Gabe rings Joe. Joe tells him there's nothing they can do because the vigilante killed himself. Joe assures Gabe that the vigilante is dead. Gabe hangs up and turns to his cops, Garnett and Newell. He tells them that he needed the vigilante to be alive and captured before the rest of the team got to him. They say it won't happen again, but Gabe points out he's dead. He kicks them out of his home. Then, the camera focuses on a morning star that Gabe has on his wall. The morning star has a spike missing. Tess is still wandering in the underground tunnels and runs into Vincent. She calls on him to stop, but he runs. She holds him at gunpoint and demands that he turn around. He turns around, showing a veined face and golden eyes as a disguise. He roars at her to go. Tess shoots him in the stomach. Suddenly, Catherine arrives and runs to him, screaming. Tess sees Vincent shift to a normal person after being shot by her. Vincent tells Catherine to give her a knife so he can take the bullet out. Tess asks Catherine if he is the serial killer they are after. Tess tried to call for backup but could not due to no signal in the underground tunnel. She runs away to get out. Vincent tells Catherine to run after Tess while he is taking the bullet out. She immediately runs after Tess. As Tess is about to get out, Vincent drags her down. In a panic, Tess bites him, and Catherine hurriedly explains the whole soldier experiment thing. Suddenly, JT arrives and shoots with his tranquilizer gun, making Tess unconscious. JT wants to run because he's sure that Tess will expose them. Even Catherine thinks that's possible because Tess is a cop who sees things in black and white. Vincent is confident in the relationship between Tess and Catherine to protect them. Meanwhile, JT doesn't trust Catherine's bonds of friendship to protect them and tells them that Evan has joined Muirfield. In the end, JT decides to deliver Vincent's DNA samples to the morgue to make everyone believe that he is dead. Vincent and Catherine decide to stay with Tess. Later, JT goes to see Evan in the morgue. He tries to switch the burned body sample to Vincent's blood sample, but cannot, because Evan looks very alert. Suddenly, Catherine arrives. She distracts Evan, which allows JT to switch the sample. In the tunnel, Tess wakes up and sees Vincent sitting beside her. Vincent explains to her that Catherine kept the whole military experiment thing a secret. Tess questions about what Catherine sees in Vincent. Vincent and Tess talk and get to know each other. When Vincent goes to get water for her, Tess tries to run away. Vincent quickly catches her and tells her that she needs to talk to Catherine to protect her, not him. He lets her go and gives her a gun. He asks her to find Catherine and talk to her. Later that day, Catherine sees Tess walking down the street. She runs out to Tess and they try to talk. Tess is furious about Catherine lying to her for a year, and Catherine gives her the case files Vincent has been involved in all the way back to her mother. Tess still thinks that Vincent is not above the law. As Tess's best friend, she begs Tess to trust her. Tess demands Catherine to turn Vincent into the police. She says that she will cover for Catherine, but only if Catherine turns Vincent in. Catherine refuses and drives off. After that, Tess rings Joe to tell him that they caught the wrong guy. Someone else picks up. Tess asks for Garnett and Newell to meet her. Catherine runs to the tunnels to tell Vincent and JT that Tess is turning them in. Tess works her way down into the tunnels with Garnett and Newell. She notices that they've brought a cattle prod and questions why they have it. They tell her to hang back and that there's more going on than she knows. She points a gun at them and asks who they are. When they try to take the gun from her, she hits one of them and runs away. One of them shoots her, and she falls into the fast-flowing water. Meanwhile, Catherine and Vincent are still in the tunnel and arguing about what they should do next. They stop arguing when Vincent hears the cops coming. Garnett and Newell spot Vincent, but Vincent and Catherine manage to defeat them. They start to head out, but Catherine worries about Tess. Tess is stuck in a water-filled tube. The bullet seems to have hit her vest, but she can't get out. The water is rising, and the exit is blocked by a gate. Luckily, Vincent finds her in time. He rips off the metal gate and pulls Tess to safety. Catherine arrives, and Tess cries in her arms, sobbing that she's sorry. After that, Catherine and Tess arrive at home and they talk. Tess points out that she now understands why Catherine didn't tell. Tess asks her if Vincent has ever hurt her or any innocent person. Catherine assures her that Vincent is not like that. While they are talking, Joe calls Tess. She tells Joe that it was a false alarm and that Garnett and Newell never showed up. At the station, Joe shouts at Gabe that his men Garnett and Newell didn't back Tess up when she needed them. He tells Gabe that Tess nearly drowned in a storm drain when Catherine arrived and saved her. Gabe apologizes and assures Joe that he will never have to see Garnett and Newell again. Later, Gabe goes to the tunnels and finds claw marks on a wall. He realizes that the vigilante is still alive. Vincent and Catherine have a quiet moment at her apartment window. They start kissing, and Evan sees them while walking by. Vincent jumps from the high-story apartment and walks away. Meanwhile, Evan has seen everything. The next morning, Evan is in a bar having a drink. The Muirfield agent enters and comes up to him. He asks why Evan has called him so urgently. Evan informs the agent that he has found their creature, and it is hiding in the tunnels. The agent gives him a panic button for emergencies and leaves. Evan notices some guys stalking him. He gets up and punches a man in the bar and gets arrested. Soon, Catherine comes to see Evan in the lockup. Apparently, he had called for Catherine. Evan tells her that he knows about her monster boyfriend and that she should stay away from him. Evan says that he only wants to protect her and that's why he called her here. After realizing that Evan has sent Muirfield to kill Vincent, she quickly runs outside. In the tunnels, Muirfield agents are searching to hunt Vincent down. Vincent senses their presence. He climbs up the walls and escapes. Later, Catherine and Vincent meet in a park. Catherine starts blaming herself for not being honest with Evan sooner. She wants to convince Evan that Vincent is not the monster that he thinks he is. Vincent tells her that eventually, Muirfield is going to stop asking Evan nicely about where he got the info, and Evan will give up Catherine. After that, Vincent decides to have a word with Evan in the subway. He asks Evan not to call Catherine if he doesn't want Muirfield to track her down. Evan brings up Vincent's murders. Evan says that he knows better than Catherine about what's good for her. While on the train, Evan leads Vincent into an ambush. Vincent gets shot with drugged darts from a Muirfield team. JT goes to see Catherine and Tess. He shares the news that Vincent went after Evan and that his tracker has been jammed. In Muirfield's building, Evan has been in the waiting room for an hour. He gets bored and comments on all the lockdown labs to catch just one guy. He manages to steal a keycard and starts snooping around. Inside a records room, Evan finds a heavily censored file under Catherine's surname. It's Catherine's mother's file. He also finds a letter that is even more disturbing to him. Outside the Muirfield building, Tess, Catherine, and JT plan how to get inside. They take out the electric fence by bringing down the local transformer and removing the power. Catherine bypasses the voice recognition security door using the voice of Evan's Muirfield ex Claire. Catherine manages to get inside, but trips an alarm. Vincent is being kept in a cage, and Muirfield boss named Agent Kyle goes to talk to him. He describes the terrible things they intend to do to Vincent. This is overheard and watched by Evan. Kyle leaves to check the security breach. Agent Kyle runs into Evan wandering through the building. They fight, and Agent Kyle asks Evan who has broken in. Evan does not say, and Kyle shoots Evan in the stomach. Meanwhile, Catherine, infiltrating her way through the building, finds Vincent's cage. She releases Vincent from his cage. While escaping the building, they find Evan and decide to carry him out. While escaping through an underground tunnel, they run into a closed steel door. Vincent tries to break it down. Suddenly, the Muirfield agents arrive and start shooting at them. Evan quickly runs and stands in front of the bullets to save Catherine. Catherine is devastated by Evan's death. Vincent grabs her and escapes through the steel door. After a couple of days, Vincent meets Catherine on a train. Catherine says that Evan took all the blame on him, and now everyone considers him to be the mole in the agency. He tells her that Evan's death was not her fault, and that he cannot live without her. In the early morning, Joe goes to Gabe's home and rings the bell. Gabe answers the door and inquires about Joe's reason to come. Joe tells him that he wants to capture the traitor Evan and put him through the trials. Gabe advises him that putting Evan in trials will create problems for the station. Gabe ensures Joe that he has his own men after Evan and will soon capture him. At the station, Catherine is sad about Evan's death. She tells Tess that she went to Evan's apartment and the place was ransacked by someone. She has found a photo of her with Evan in his home and shows it to Tess. Tess feels guilty for not telling Joe about Vincent and Evan's death. Catherine forbids her to say anything to anyone. Suddenly, a man with blood all over him enters the station, asking for Catherine. The man drops to the floor. Catherine goes to him and asks his name. The man says that she does not have much time and then dies. Tess conceals a keycard found in the man's clothes. She gives it to Catherine to find out if he works for Muirfield. At night, JT and Vincent are at an alley to investigate the man who died in front of Catherine. Vincent is sure that the man worked for Muirfield. In the alley, they find another dead Muirfield agent, some rats, and the dead guy's cell phone. Later, Catherine and Tess figure out that the person who broke into Evan's apartment is Gabe. Catherine goes to Gabe's office to confront him. She accuses him of being a Muirfield agent. In a flashback, we see that Gabe spent his childhood at Muirfield. Catherine's mother was one of Gabe's doctors too. They were using Gabe for harvesting blood and tissues. Back to the present, Gabe tells all of this to Catherine. Gabe says that he has read Evan's journal. After reading the journals, Gabe concludes that Evan and Catherine were after the vigilante. Evan went behind her back and Muirfield killed him. Now she wants to find Muirfield and get revenge for killing Evan. Catherine asks Gabe if he is not with Muirfield, then why he wanted to catch the vigilante so badly. Gabe explains that he only wanted to protect him and wants to hunt down Muirfield too. Catherine is still suspicious and leaves the room. Later, at Catherine's apartment, she and Vincent watch the footage retrieved from the dead man's phone. The man says that he was her mother's student and tells Catherine that no one knows about her. He says that Muirfield is vulnerable because they are moving their operation, so it would be a good time to take them down. He starts getting shot and says, "Go to the orchard." As the video ends, Catherine says that they must follow the lead and destroy Muirfield. Vincent disagrees, saying that the whole thing might be a trap. He also advises not to trust Gabe. He asks her to give him some time to figure it out. The next morning, Catherine goes to Gabe's apartment. Gabe shows her the rest of Evan's journals. She opens a journal that says, Orchard Industries, with an address. She tells Gabe about the message that the dead guy left for her on his phone. Gabe offers to go with her to the orchard, but she turns him down, saying that she will go alone. At night, Tess and Catherine go to Orchard Industries. Tess distracts the guard while Catherine enters the building. She arrives at a locked room and uses the key card lifted from the dead agent. She gets in and finds all of Muirfield's servers. She tries to access the server, but it asks for a password. She has Gabe on the phone, who is remotely assisting her with the break-in. Gabe suggests trying Chimera as a password, and it works. With the help of his girlfriend Tyler, Gabe instructs Catherine to download the files to his computer. She also finds Vincent's file there. Realizing that Gabe will have access to Vincent's file too, she tries to stop the download. Gabe's girlfriend tells him that if the downloading is interrupted, they will lose everything. Vincent hears this because he is spying on Gabe from a nearby rooftop. He calls JT to ask him to track Catherine's phone. Soon, Catherine turns around and finds Vincent standing behind her. Vincent turns into the beast and starts breaking the servers. Muirfield agents are alerted by this. Suddenly, a fire starts spreading in the room, destroying all the servers. The beast takes Catherine in its arms and escapes. The next morning, Catherine meets Gabe in the car outside the Orchard building. He informs her that he did not get anything from the downloads. She asks about the Chimera password. Gabe tells her that it was the name of the original study he was part of in Muirfield. She tells Gabe that her mother had a Chimera necklace. In a flashback, we see Catherine's mother wearing a Chimera necklace and smuggling Gabe outside of Muirfield. She handled Gabe to his new foster parents. Back at the present, Gabe gets out of the car and approaches his girlfriend Tyler standing nearby. Gabe tells her that the doctor who saved him might have been Catherine's mother. Tyler shows him a picture of the server wreckage, hinting that their vigilante was there too. They figure that Catherine is involved with the vigilante. Later, Catherine meets Vincent in the tunnels. She advises staying together to protect themselves and to put an end to Muirfield. Vincent agrees. He tells her that he has found a new place and takes her there. A few days later, Catherine is worried that she might be pregnant. She takes a pregnancy test but is relieved when it comes out negative. Vincent informs her he does not want to have a baby and that it will be too dangerous. Catherine assures him that she also does not want it right now. Vincent tells her that they will never be able to live a normal life as a couple, but Catherine is satisfied with the way they are. Later, Catherine and Tess go to a hotel where Gabe is currently staying. They arrive at Gabe's suite. Gabe asks Tess to go and get him a coffee. When Tess leaves, Gabe shows Catherine the photo of the server wreckage and says he knows who did this. Catherine refuses to acknowledge anything. Gabe loses his patience and his eyes turn yellow. He is about to turn into the beast. She pulls her gun on Gabe, but Gabe controls himself and tells her that he has medication to suppress his DNA. That stops him from turning into the beast. Unfortunately, he has developed a resistance to the medication, and that's why he wants to study Vincent's DNA. According to Gabe, Vincent was injected with the upgraded version of injections and can control himself better than others. Gabe proposes a deal: Vincent's blood in exchange for his medicines. After that, Catherine heads out without saying anything. Catherine goes to Vincent and tells him about Gabe's offer. Vincent is convinced that it must be a trap to capture him. She advises Vincent to meet Gabe, saying that they will be able to live a normal life. It will be beneficial for everyone. Eventually, Vincent hesitatingly agrees. They go to Gabe's suite, but he is not there. Meanwhile, Gabe has arrived at Vincent's home. Apparently, he had put a tracker on Catherine when she left the hotel. He attacks JT in full beast mode, looking for Vincent. Luckily, Vincent and Catherine reach there in time and shoot Gabe with the tranquilizer gun. Gabe drops to the floor. When Gabe wakes up, he tells Vincent that he is desperate to find him.